I'm David Krapf, editor-in-chief of WorkBoat magazine, and today we're with John Groundwater, who's the executive director of the Passenger Vessel Association, also known as PVA. And PVA, they have 600 members combined of vessel operators and associate members, meaning, of course, people like Caterpillar, MTU, and a lot of shipyards also, including VT Halter. Their 300 vessel members operate approximately 2,000 vessels across the domestic United States, and that includes anyone from dinner boat operators to excursion boat operators to the inland overnight passenger vessel operators like American Queen. So welcome.
Ferry companies and the like.
So John, I want to start off with the first question, which is the most obvious, is, as you know, things were, for your industry, were really humming for several years in a row. In fact, you were not the biggest, but definitely the strongest sector of all the sectors we cover at WorkBoat. And all of a sudden this hit. So I want to hit basically, now what? What are your members dealing with? And also, if you can address, what does the economic impact look like from COVID-19?
Well, David, thanks for having me here. Good to be with you, and appreciate you looking at our industry. Basically, the short story is the industry, by and large, is shut down, similar to restaurants and other kinds, theaters and the like. So we do have some operations, some minimal operations in the ferry segment of the industry, but they're hard hit as well. So if you can imagine, all of these folks were experiencing excellent economic conditions, and then, as you said, this happened, and here we are.
I know you told me before we started the interview something about the economic impact in the
Right.
range of $3 billion to $5 billion. Can you break that down further, or where you got those numbers from?
Well, sure. Early on, we wanted to get a good sense of exactly what was going on in the industry and what the economic impact might be, because we knew that moving forward, we were going to be needing that information to advocate for the industry here in Washington. You know, not only with Congress, but also with the administration. So we did two surveys, actually. One was to our associate members, our vendors and suppliers. The other one was to our vessel operators. And we learned through this survey that, and we said, we made the question was, if you were to be shut down from March 1 through Labor Day, what would be the economic impact? And so we learned that we were somewhere in the neighborhood of, say, 3 billion. So since this coronavirus pandemic has evolved, we think that some of specifically seasonal operators may lose their entire seasons. And so when you add that into the sort of the equation, we're thinking the economic impact, the longer this goes on, obviously, is going to be closer to somewhere in the 3 to 5 billion range. And that's an estimate, though.
That's an estimate, right? So what kind of changes? Well, obviously operations is all but shut down, like you said, except
Right.
for a couple of ferry operators. Maybe some water taxi services, things like that.
Exactly.
So,
but the common, sort of rank and file member has furloughed or laid off thousands of employees at this point, unfortunately, and they're keeping skeleton crews there to keep vessel upkeep and do the things that need to be done with these kinds of the maintenance kinds of things as well, so they'll be ready when they start operating again.
And then, like in Alan Bernstein's case with B&B Riverboats in Cincinnati, he said he even had to furlough his own family members. So
yeah, he said that was the toughest thing he's ever done.
Yeah, so hopefully he didn't play favorites among some of his sons.
No, I think he swept them all up in the net.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Now the other question is about the paycheck, what's available to the passenger vessel operators, like also, right. A lot of other small businesses, because a lot of your members are mom and pop. They're 1 and 2, 3 boat operators. Of course, right. You have some larger, but how successful were they with the first round of accessing the Paycheck Protection Program?
I think that there's a mixed bag of success. I think many of the operators were successful in getting the PPP. The ones that were very successful were the ones that hit the ground running early, who had good relationships with local banks, and they could get in and quickly access these funds. So we were in PVA was encouraging them with as much information, giving them as much information as we could about how to get this done. We also talked about the economic injury loan, the EIDL loan as well, and we put together a video with a local Alexandria, Virginia CPA, very knowledgeable, who was able to walk us all through that process.
Yeah, I saw that video. Yeah. So how would you, did you hear about a lot of members getting shut out of the PPP? I've read about that nationally, how a lot of that money ended up going to like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, national
Right.
chains, Potbelly restaurant. You probably read all about it.
No, I saw that as well, and it's hard to put your finger on exactly why some of them were shut out or didn't get their loans. Some of it may have been timing and things like that. But there were some members who didn't get in time or weren't able to get PPP funds. So that's why this next round, this next money that hopefully will be available very soon and approved by the House tomorrow, can get back out there, and we're going to encourage our members who didn't get PPP money to get right on that.
Yeah, that's the 484 billion bill that they approved yesterday. And that includes we were talking earlier about it, that includes 310 billion they're going to infuse into the Paycheck Protection Program. So what I read was since the whole since the program is already set up, they have to just infuse it back into a system that has already been there. So I heard, I know it's speculation, but I've heard they could get the checks rolling within 48 hours. So
I suspect that's true because the system's in place. I didn't mean to step on you there and let you finish your question. Sorry about that.
No, so I was just what I was going to ask was, what you addressed was that maybe the PVA members or the operators that got shut out in the first round will get a piece of that 310 billion, because I just like we were discussing that they still haven't gone over the specifics of the bill, but they were going to make, I believe, at least 60 billion available for these smaller lenders, which means they could obviously get the money to your member and businesses of your size.
Well, we're certainly going to encourage our members to those that didn't get PPP to if they want to apply. And actually, we've luckily sort of saw this coming, and a couple of weeks ago did a little bit of pushed the leadership of Congress, knowing and recognizing that there wouldn't be enough money. We felt very strongly about that, and we urged them to make additional monies available. So, this is a good thing.
Now, I know you also want to discuss what PVA is doing for their members. I went onto the web. In fact, we're a member, as you know, an associate member.
Yeah. Glad to have you.
And hopefully you got our check, so we're good for next year.
You're good to go. You're good to go.
I downloaded the COVID-19. You have two different, which are available to members. You have COVID-19 for members, and then you have, I believe, the COVID-19 governmental. Just has all the CDC regulations, everything that's been done by maybe federal and state governments. But maybe you can talk a little bit about other things things like this and other things you're offering. What are you offering your members essentially?
Well, I mean, you described pretty well what's available right now to members. I mean, the PVA, as you know, has a long history of working in the safety arena and the like, and also has a culture of sharing, member to member, and so that goes way back to PVA's roots. And so early on, the PVA Safety and Security Committee, which is made up of I think the membership is somewhere in the neighborhoods of 50 members, and Eric Christensen of our staff has organized conference calls to bring them early on to bring them together, and has had subsequently several others to see what we could gather from them. And so we decided that we need the government information. We aimed at the CDC, which is really out front and is the sort of the benchmark guidance, if you will. So we have a lot of stuff from them, but we also, as you mentioned, have gathered a lot of information from members and stuff that they're doing in their companies to address this problem. And so the hope is that that sort of sharing, philosophy will benefit, the membership at large. Now, in the last Safety and Security Committee meeting, they decided that they should look even more forward, and that they have decided that PVA in general is going to develop guidelines for operators to use to get started once that this pandemic has passed, so to speak. So there'll be guidance that comes out about how to deal with crew, how to keep crew safe. There'll be guidance about how to clean vessels and what, moving forward after this, what's the new normal in keeping vessels clean. And then there'll be a piece developed as well about passenger safety and all of that. So that's in the works. It's on a fast track right now because as we've got 3 states right now that are talking about opening up. And so all eyes will be on South Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia to see.
Right.
And I think if things work out for them, then we'll see other openings. So we feel we need to be prepared to give our members advice on what to do moving forward. And so that document, those guidelines are forthcoming.
So that includes, say you have a COI for 500 passengers, and they might allow you to put 50% of that onto your boat, meaning 250, I guess, and also it means passengers and crew. So,
well, we're hopeful that there won't be any changes to COIs and that industry will adopt best practices, and that hopefully will be all that's necessary, and that the government, if we can get out front and we can get these guidelines out there, that those in government will look and say, oh, they're doing the right thing. They're practicing safe distancing and all the like. And so that's part of the reason for our doing that. Not only serving our members, but also to demonstrate responsibility.
One final question, John,
Sure.
is long term. I mean, long term, I still think the demographics and other indicators for your industry is good. Meaning the baby boomers, they like to travel more. Also, even before this COVID-19, a lot of these people, they wanted to stay closer to home. They wanted to stay domestic. They did not want to go overseas for whatever reason, threats of terrorism, actually disease before the COVID-19. So how do you look at the long-term prospects for your industry once we get by this?
Well, like you, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I think folks will be itching to get out on the water and to travel and to do things. They'll be doing it differently, possibly, but I think that they'll be looking forward to that. And actually, the other day I heard, if you recall, if you think back to 07 and 08, staycations were,
Right.
big. And I actually the other day heard someone talk about staycations. So if that becomes a reality, that's going to fit real well with our industry. And I think that that our folks will be ready to serve them. So I'm optimistic. And of course, this is a depressing time. And I think the biggest issue here is you just don't know what tomorrow will bring. But we're taking every step we can to make sure that when we're ready to, when the things pass, we're ready to go.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, John, and stay safe. And
Pleasure.
I'm sure as this goes on, I'll talk to more of the operators, more of your members.
Well, anytime, and thank you very much for including me and for including PVA.
Okay, thanks, John.